Welcome back to RC Pilot Hangar. I'm here with Cash and I got a little treat. This is a little bit different. I talk a lot about airplanes. But Cash used to fly airplanes and now he's a great boat builder. He has a lot of RC boats and he loves building them. So you started off flying with airplanes a long time ago.
Oh, a very long time ago.
Well, how did you start off flying? What were you flying back then? Do you recall?
I started off flying when I was probably 10 or 11 with rubber power free flight.
Rubber power free flight.
You built up stick and tissue models, Jetco, Comet, Gillos, that kind of stuff.
It seems like everybody starts that way.
Yeah, what got to me is that I built several planes that flew well, but I built this Comet Sparky, and you got to remember that thing. That was 74, 73. That thing was already 35 years old or older then, and it's still it wasn't even die cut. It's print wood. Okay. So I had to learn how to cut it all out with an Exact knife and cover Japanese tissue and dope it, and it flew okay. But I would get books out of the library, how to build fly model airplanes. Several other guys that would tell you theory and aerodynamics and all sorts of stuff. And so I finally figured it out. And I wound this thing up. And we had old growth trees to the north side of our field and the high lines. And this thing circled out of my hand, went across the high lines, cleared them by at least 20 foot, ended up 2.5 acres over in the next field. And I was just ecstatic. I lost my mind. Wow. So, yeah.
So then you did that. Then did you get in like U-control?
Yeah, I did mostly half A, Baby Ringmasters. There was, I think, not the Swordsman 18s. I forgot the name. There was a 20 or 23 inch model that Carl Gerberg had that was a built-up wing. Okay. And messed with my first diesel conversion. Somehow I found a Davis diesel head, and it was and it was later on. I had the airplane up to my early teenage years by the time I had a car. I drove down to Stu's Hobbies, I think it was, over in Plano, and he had this thing. I got that from the diesel fuel. So I'm going to swing a bigger prop and blah, blah, blah. But that head was designed for the TD engine, which is a faster 049. Right. I had a baby B. Okay. So it held up for about 10, 15, 20 flats and just sheared the crank right off. But it flew. It worked. Wow. So, yeah.
So then you did that for a while. When did you get into RC flying?
Oh, let's see here. Ex-fiance, MG midget. Well, that's part of it. I was engaged at one time. Turned out that this girl, I'm not going to say her name or anything else about her, but it didn't end well. Okay. And I'd sold an MG midget that I had, my little second car, to help pay for the wedding. So I had this money. I went up to Texas RC, back when a young lady there named June was running it, and picked out a powered sailplane, an 049, and a two-stick, two-channel Futaba radio. I don't know how you've been long been in this, but basically the elevators on one side and rudders on the other.
That's right, yeah. For those.
And I taught myself to fly in the field next door. I'd stand in Johnson grass up to my chest. And I already knew how to trim an airplane from free flight. And it was a polyhedral wing, so it's a very stable aircraft. So, and max speed, 30 mile an hour if the 049 is really running good? Right. So I'd go out there and I heaved out in the field and I almost hit a tree, a cow, a diesel, my mom, the house twice, myself. But once I get it figured out, and being in that Johnson grass, if I messed up, the worst I'd do is maybe puncture the covering. Yeah. And I'd just fix it and go on. But I got to the point where I could fly it reliably. And then there was a gentleman that lived here named Mackie Nelson. And he used to fly and build beautiful aircraft. And we flew behind his house for the longest time until we finally decided that our toys were outgrowing our area. There was a field behind his house. And he taught me to fly it right, flight procedure turns, that sort of thing. How to keep it in front of you.
When was this time?
Oh, God, that was 84?
84.
84, 85, yeah.
Okay. So then, did you get involved with any of the clubs here?
Not really. Not until I came back from Germany. Okay. When I went to Germany, I had some stuff shipped there.
So you flew in Germany too?
Oh yeah, I was in the Air Force. Status of Forces agreement would let us have our 72 megahertz radios in Germany. Oh. But I also bought a 40 megahertz while I was there. Oh. We were had a somewhat almost club before I left, and I actually had a.
Is that through the service, guys through the service?
Yeah. Oh, that was actually a German American club. Okay. And look, you go to Germany, you want to see hobby shops, real buy guy. Even now they have more than we do. All right. And so I was at Ramstein, which is US Air Force in Europe headquarters, or as a crew chief over in F-16s, there were hobby shops within at least 4 or 5 good hobby shops within 5 to 20 click radius of where I was at.
Wow.
I mean, all sorts of airplanes, boats, cars, whatever, you name it.
Wow.
Oh, it was great. The German American Club, I had an Ultra Sport 60. My buddy had built this thing and was afraid of it. And so I used to fly a Sig Cougar for a while with a Como 51 Schnurley, so I wasn't worried about it. And I got it from him. The biggest, the few times my head got that big, I was flying this thing, and I was coming left to right, and I was already downwind, and I flew it too long, I lost fuel, lost power, I ran out of fuel. And that was maybe 75 feet up, maybe 100 foot, and they thought I was going to dork it. And I dropped my nose, turned it as tight as I could without losing airspeed, kept descending in that turn, yanked it over the field about this high off the ground, and landed it almost in front of me, and the Germans freaking gave me an applause. My head was that big. It was huge. But the Germans are fun. They're nuts. They
just love the hobby.
Oh, good Lord. There was a guy that had this Delta wing with a Weber Speed 40 on the back, and that was the only American that he trusted to launch this thing without cutting his fingers off.
Wow.
Because the props here, you're holding this thing. Now, if you go follow through with it, right?
Right.
So I just run my rear end off, and I just drop my hand, and off it go. I'm surprised I only have fingers missing.
So when you came back, then that's when you got involved with some of the clubs here?
Yeah. I joined the Richlands RC Club probably a few years after I came back.
Okay.
Well, I messed around with rockets for a while because when I came back, I really didn't have a job at first. And then, when everything picked up, I started flying again. Now, I tinker with boats while I was in Germany too, but nothing scales. They're mostly what they considered fast electrics.
Right.
So
when did you make the turn to mostly go to boats? Is that just you love building boats?
I like to build. People don't. Some people do, but a lot of people don't build like they used to. Which is, that's
right. That's
the last 15 years when I was flying, I did. This is a jump, combat, and old timers. That's 2 different places, man. It really is. But you have to build your combat models. You can't get ready to fly combat models. And then I'd always liked old timers. In fact, one of my earliest models was a second or third RC model was a baby Buzzard bombshell, which I thought was the greatest thing in the world. So, and I had a thing for them. I grew up building stick and tissue models and reading books that were written back in the 60s and 50s and 40s. So all this was that was my wheelhouse. So I joined the Society of Antique Modelers, and I built old timers. Like the Lanzo bomber, the 1936. What was that thing called? The Misfortune X. Planes like that. And it got to the point I'd show up, I didn't feel like I fit in anymore. Okay. So, I didn't get rid of them. I sold off some of my RC stuff and some of my kits, and used that for money because I already amassed a ton of stuff before that happened.
Right.
And invested in some more kits and stuff to keep me occupied, so if something happens, I still have something to do. But I kept my favorite airplanes still up in the attic. So if I ever start to fly again, I'll drag them down, clean them up, unwarp them, and go out and
So is it you like the building more than anything? The
about
scale
50-50, yeah, the scale, but now it's frustrating. Now, I don't do, people think, oh, you're a good builder, Ken. No, I'm an accomplished hack, okay? I do standoff scale. And I don't know if you remember that term. The AMA used to have a class called standoff scale for aircraft, right? And what that was is that you could get more than 5 or 10 feet away. You couldn't get closer than 5 or 10 feet away from the aircraft. Yeah. And that's how you would judge it. In precision scale, there were guys that had 40, 50 hours just detailing the machine guns. Wow. And they put all that time and money and effort at the dumb end of a radio signal. And I remember watching Dave Platt, who used to be the guy, quarter scale Spitfire, I think it was. They were flying in Arizona, if I remember correctly. And they had just built a new runway. It was about that high above the desert floor, and he was short, and he hit his gear, and that plane was just ground down to the wood or fiberglass as it slid down. I was like, oh, no. So standoff scale, semi-scale, basically, Okay. But there's enough detail that you know what it is, and you know what, even if you're doing a particular boat or aircraft, you know what it's supposed to be, but it's not totally,
He gets really excited with his boats. When he brings out a new boat, you're really excited. You're just really happy that you put all this effort and time into these builds. Yeah,
and then I'll turn around and run the heck out of it for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm building something else. That's what I do. I like to build. It's a release. It's I sit out here, I build, I tinker, I talk to myself, I turn on, I've stolen my daughter's Echo Dot because she never uses it anymore, and I use that thing for a speaker and listen to my music and just, sit out
So
here
what
and
are you
relax.
working on right now on your boats? What do you have? What can you tell me a little bit about that
Yeah,
boat?
well, that is, okay, World War II, all your major powers, and this is what's kind of cool. Everybody knows battleships, cruisers, aircraft carriers, all that stuff. But there were so many support boats and things that were built to support, that were converted that we don't know nothing about. And so the Germans have a thing called a Siebel ferry, which is basically you take the pontoons from those pontoon bridges they built and then space them out, put a deck on it, put flat guns on it, a wheelhouse and a motor, and they use it for a ferry.
Wow.
And so I was researching that and came across this thing called a Craig's fish cutter. Now they have a class of fishing boats called a fish cutter. And what they did, early World War II, right before the war, they converted several surviving boats and then went to the dockyard where they built these things originally and started building new boats. Same keel and everything, same hull, but from the deck up, the superstructure is about the same. They had gun decks on it, or they might tow anti-mine devices, or they'd have like depth charges on them. So they were basically wartime fishing boats.
Huh. So is this a scratch build that you're doing?
No, I found an old Grontner Elke kit, and if you got time to, we can show the people how old this thing is. Well, I've got the plans behind you. It's got the RC plans, and it's going to boggle your mind when you see this thing. I'd say that kit was produced in '72.
How'd you find that
RC
kit?
Groups.
RC Groups? Just looking around?
Yeah, I found this thing, and I realized I was going to convert that Grontner crab ton into it, but the Grontner crab tub has a rounded stern, and these boats had what they call a cruiser stern, where it stopped and flattened off.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, that's the right hull. That is the exact right hull to use. So I made a deal with the guy. He shipped it, and it's an old kit. The box looked like it went through World War II and probably several of the psychic wars. It was bad. And there was a couple of pieces of hardware missing, but it was mostly complete. And a lot of stuff anything that was missing, I use my own hardware anyway.
Okay. So motor-wise, is it what will be in this?
I'm going to run that with a older brush motor, not a closed cam, but open end bell, where you can replace with a 3-to-1 gear ratio planetary gearbox like the crawler guys use.
Okay.
So I've got, and I think it's supposed to weigh about 70 ounces all up weight. Okay. And I think I'm going to have enough leeway. I can put 2 6-cell packs in there in parallel.
Yeah.
So basically, I'll have a 6,000 milliamp pack on a geared motor. I'll be able to drive that thing all day.
Wow, that's awesome.
But so I'm converting it with some parts and pieces. I'm like my depth charges I'm making from scratch.
Oh, fantastic.
I'll use Legos to make deck hatches and deck boxes and that kind of stuff.
So you still work full time. So
Yeah.
I mean, when you retire, are you going to just like go crazy with all your extra time?
It's possible. I don't know. Hell, I might sell the Studebaker and go buy myself an A alter and go racing. What they just call them. There's a term for it. Nostalgia drag racing and get myself killed. Who knows? I mean, But no, I'll probably do the same thing I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I build maybe once or twice a week. I'll come home and I'll kiss my wife on the head, and I'll come out here for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and build. And I'll go in there, get something to eat, watch TV, and go 8:30, 9 o'clock, go to bed. And
Yeah.
I'll leave here about 5:40 in the morning.
So we got one of his models here, and this is the one that we were talking about, where he's actually doing a somewhat like a scratch build, I would say, right? Because the upper part's going to be kind of all scratch.
Part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The kit, I used the hull, the deck, and the bulwark supports, and this is actually part of the kit too. This wooden structure, but everything else is going to be scratch built. So the gun deck supports are scratch built. The forward is scratch built, the aft one's scratch built, the rails are wire rails, and I bought stanchions from Cornwall Models in England.
Okay.
I'll buy $40 worth, $50 worth of parts from them every 3 to 4 months, and then you get here in a couple of weeks, and so you get stanchions. Sad thing is that wire was too thick. I had to drill those a little bit to make sure it cleared, but then that's how I make up my rails. And so I'm scratch building the depth charges. I don't know if I'm going to do the mine sweeping components or just have the ship's boat back here. And then I've got some guns I'm building from kits, from Tamiya kits. I'm going to have a 37 millimeter flak up front and a quad 20 millimeter in the back. And I might put lights on. I don't know yet. I might keep it real simple.
How many hours do you think you've gotten to this build?
I was off all last week, and I spent probably 5 days of that out here. So when I think about it, so probably, and I'd stop. I'd get tired after 3 or 4 hours and go in there and watch TV and come back out. 30, probably 50 hours, 60 hours in.
That's a lot of time, a lot of time. So tell me a little bit about, you have a website? I'm actually going to put the link below so you can look at their club.
Yeah.
We've got a few members now you've got with this club now.
We've got what I call 6 or 7 what I call Star Wars. So most of the time they're going to be out there. Depends if you're at Town Lake or if you're at Josie Ranch.
Okay.
Okay. And we've got another 4 or 5 guys that come out once in a while and a couple people that show up once in a blue moon. But we have 17, 18 million people on our chat line. Now, we don't still have a web page, but we do have a Facebook page.
Okay.
And it's under the North Texas Model Shipwrights. It's a group. So.
Yeah, I see it's growing pretty good.
Yeah.
So this is, and you just started doing this.
About maybe 5, 6 months ago. Because I never was a big Facebook guy. I'd get on there every 6 months, look up some people I knew, see how they're doing, make sure no one died, and get off it.
Yeah, I will put the link down below so you can hook up.
But yeah, we're working on that. We have several guys that have just joined us. Ed Tortle from New York, and he's a member of the subcommittee, and he does beautiful scale subs are like this big.
we're gonna put him on the list.
Yeah, I want you to come in him. Yeah. Steve O'Connell, he does subs and tugs. Stephen Vick, we got 3 Steves. Stephen Vick does subs and sail. Oh, wow. And those 2 guys are from upper Northwest. And then we just had a guy join up with us, Steve Davidson, who flies, I think, at the Richmond RC Club, and knows Larry and knows some other people. He flies, and he's got, already he's got 2 sailboats that he picked up. And then I built a little Dean's Marine PBR, which is a little Vietnam era, the Pipper, the little Vietnam era riverine boat. And I overpowered it something fierce. I've never seen a boat snap roll in my life, but it did. So I had to put a wider rudder on it, less motor. I got it running pretty good. Now I parked it and didn't run anymore. I do that sometimes. It's like, I'm at you. So I gave that to Fred. Fred traded it to him because he did some 3D printing for Fred, and Fred wanted to give him something for it. He didn't want to take it, but he gave him that PBR. Now he's got in the water. I went, I want it back. But yeah, we have a bunch of guys that have so many varied experiences modeling to begin with. Have several guys that do a lot of plastic modeling. If you're going to build boats, scale boats, that's a good thing to have. 2 guys that do a lot of 3D printing. Sailboat guys, tugboat guys, scale boat guys, some guys that do fast electrics, several guys that use race RC round-around cars. So we have all that, and several pilots.
Yeah.
So it's a very varied group, but we enjoy ourselves.
So this is another great builder, and I hope you enjoy what you're seeing, and I'll show you a little bit more B footage of his stuff. And thank you very much for watching the channel. Please go ahead and click the like button or hit the thumbs up button, and please subscribe if you can. And we'll catch you at the next hangar or at the next event. Have a good one. Take care.
Bye. Thanks.
You can send